Hello, and welcome back to the world of Wysteria. Tonight, I will be reading chapter 34. So, Wysteria, chapter 34. Lily's love for you goes beyond passion, said Jeremy. Her devotion to you is selfless. She is loyal to you, for you have given her everything. This is why, without hesitation, she will come to your defense. Unlike benevolent angels, whose interest in us, no matter how heartfelt, can never be more than a hobby, Lily will never know another world but yours. So, using your rainbow analogy, said Will, trying to tie together the various threads of information Jeremy had given him today. Lily's spectrum is limited to one color, while Iris has access to many? Yes, Jeremy replied. That is an apt description. And our guardian angels just pop in every once in a while to see how we're doing? At this, Jeremy chuckled. Not quite, he answered. In the case of true gods and goddesses, even when they are within their primary worlds, they are not blind to ours. This is an important difference between the gods and lesser beings, such as us. Besides having access to more worlds, their consciousness is not limited, as ours is, to a single one. They seem able to observe, if not exist within, many worlds at once. What would happen to Lily if Wysteria suddenly disappeared? If I died, Will asked. That depends, said Jeremy. On many things, he said. It didn't appear that Jeremy planned to enumerate them, however, and Will didn't press the issue, for he had another concern. Having such a singularly faithful devotee, particularly one as beautiful and desirable as Lily, is certainly flattering, Will conceded, blushing again. But it's also troubling. In what way? Jeremy asked. I'm in love with Emily, he answered. Ah, said Jeremy. You see this as a conflict within your heart. But you needn't. Lily is a woman, but not simply another woman. She is an embodiment of your love and passion. The bond between you and these two women is quite different. You needn't feel you are being unfaithful to either one of them. I don't, said Will. But what about them? What about their feelings? I think they both understand, he replied. Emily knows she has your love, and Lily appears to accept this. Though, as a woman, Lily may want your attention, she knows she'll always have a place in your heart. There is bound to be some instinctive jealousy, but I sense no real animosity between them. It was true. Even though Emily liked to tease him about Lily, she didn't seem to feel threatened by her. And though Lily was definitely cool toward Emily when they first met, she had warmed a bit. I'm sure you're right about all of it, said Will. Now that I understand who Lily is, everything makes sense. Except, where are the girls? He murmured, turning his head toward the doorway. I just want to make sure. He could feel their presence, not too far away, probably in the castle, perhaps on one of the upper floors, but not within earshot. There's something funny going on between Lily and Charlotte, he said, speaking quietly. Funny? How so? Jeremy asked. Not funny as in comical, something strange, odd. Will then told him what had happened the night of the festival, the disdainful look Lily had given Charlotte when they saw her in the crowd, and what Lily had said to him later while the girls were dancing together, that he should watch out for Charlotte. I see, said Jeremy. And how did Charlotte react toward her? When I first pointed out Lily, before Lily noticed us sitting together, Charlotte said she looked familiar. She later explained that she might have seen her somewhere in town earlier that day, but... You don't believe her? Jeremy asked. I have no reason not to, Will answered. But both of them, Lily and Charlotte, seem suspicious of each other, as if they've met before, somewhere, which would be impossible, given what you've told me about Lily's identity. Emily and I have talked about it, and we both get the same feeling. She suggested it might be nothing more than a girl thing, as she puts it, some kind of gut-level female rivalry. Yes, said Jeremy. Charlotte fancies you. But she's Emily's good friend. I did not say she had designs on you, he countered, before Will could finish. But there is a romantic attraction. Will could not deny this. He'd seen it clearly in her eyes. Emily may be right, Jeremy continued. Perhaps Lily is just being cautious, protective. She senses that Charlotte desires you and sees her as a potential threat to her relationship with you or to yours with Emily. Maybe so, said Will. You sound unconvinced, Jeremy observed. Charlotte seems uncomfortable whenever Lily comes up in the conversation, he said. And I can't help feeling she's holding something back. Not lying to us, but not telling us everything. Do you think she might understand who Lily really is? An interesting idea, Jeremy responded, sounding intrigued by the question. But he offered no answer. Will then heard faint footsteps. I think they've returned, he said. But his inner sense promptly told him he was wrong. No, not they. Just Emily. Charlotte's gone. Perhaps her ears had become too warm, Jeremy remarked drolly. I hope not, muttered Will. Are you boys still out there? He heard his sweetheart call from within the room. Yes, we are, Will answered. He stood and moved toward the doorway, meeting her as she stepped onto the balcony. So Charlotte left, he asked, seeing she was indeed alone. Yes, said Emily. She needed to take off and said there was no reason to interrupt your conversation again. But she told me to say goodbye to both of you. So, where did you two go? I showed her the grounds and gave her a quick tour of the castle, she said. We spent most of our time up on the tower. I told her about our jump into the ravine and Alicia's divine display. What did she think of that? Will asked. She thought it was incredible, Emily replied. Charlotte believes in goddesses and fairies and the like, but she's never seen one herself. At least, not that she can be sure of. So she got very excited. It was cute. She was also amazed that I leapt down there and you tunneled back up. I'm surprised you didn't try jumping from the tower together, said Will. It seems like something she'd want to try. Emily laughed. Charlotte is pretty fearless, she said. But though she's a talented traveler, she can't alter her body. We did think about skipping down, just to look around. But we figured Alicia wouldn't come out unless you were there. And she had things to do. I must say, said Jeremy, I'm quite impressed by your progress, though not altogether surprised by it. I am, she replied, surprised, that is. I have to thank you for encouraging me to work on my body control. It's been fun, and what I learned did come in handy during the fight. Speaking of talents in the fight, she said, I don't know if you two discussed this, but who or what were those men who attacked us? I've never seen anyone who could move as quickly as that pair who grabbed Charlotte, and those two who changed into monsters. I didn't think it was possible to alter one's body that radically. They were extraordinarily gifted men, said Jeremy. But I believe that is what they were, men, travelers, and most likely mortal. But not supernatural beings, said Emily. From what you described, no, he said. Can you alter your body like that? She asked. I have, on occasion, been able to change my exterior physical form, but never to that extent, he said. In order to make such a drastic change so quickly, those men would have had to be well practiced and blessed with unusually strong natural talent. Why do you believe they were mortal? Asked Will. Few immortals can travel, Jeremy replied. And what could Nathan offer those who can? They have their own worlds at their command. So, do all immortals have worlds? Will asked. It is nearly, though not entirely, impossible for a traveler, a dreamer, possessing no home, to become an immortal, said Jeremy. For after death, there is no world to which they can retreat. This last statement sent a chill up Will's spine. The thought of possibly becoming immortal himself, but living on for ages without Emily, was deeply troubling. Jeremy must have seen the angst in his eyes, for after staring into them for a moment, he smiled and said, There are always exceptions. Yes, he thought, feeling heartened. Lily had survived. Emily was not his creation. Yet, perhaps, if the bond were strong enough. Whoever those men were, and however they acquired their skills, they are little threat to you here, said Jeremy, closing the subject. There was a brief lull. Then Emily spoke up. Do you think it would be safe for us to leave Wysteria? She asked. Leave, said Jeremy. Ah, yes. You are anxious to try traveling to another world together. I'm not sure if that's possible yet, she replied. But since we have been able to move within Wysteria, I think we need more practice here, Will interjected, as Jeremy mulled over Emily's question. I agree, she said. I just meant when we felt ready. I would remain cautious, Jeremy finally answered. Once you leave Wysteria, you are vulnerable, and Nathan has eyes and ears in many worlds. The dust will settle soon enough. What if we came to your world? Emily proposed. Wouldn't that be safe? Yes, said Jeremy. I imagine it would. A clever thought, my dear. Yes, you are welcome to try any time. Having received his permission to visit, along with a compliment, Emily looked pleased, smiling first at Jeremy, then at Will. I bet we could do it, she said. We've done it before. That's true, Will replied. After Jeremy had pushed them into the dark, they had found their way to his world. I suppose we could try. Now? She asked eagerly. Let's practice here today and see how it goes, he said. I'd like to feel more comfortable with it. Tomorrow? Maybe. Maybe, he answered with a wink. Emily responded by giving him a hug, clearly taking his maybe for a yes. So, what did I miss? She asked, addressing both men. What did you two talk about while I was showing Charlotte around? Your beloved can explain, Jeremy said to her, after a quick glance at Will. I am off now. Already? Said Emily. Jeremy adjusted the collar of his jacket and pulled on each sleeve, then turned to have a last look at the falls before leaving them. We will see each other again soon, he said. Perhaps when you come to call. I can't thank you enough, Will said to him. My pleasure, he replied, in a faraway voice, gazing down at the pool where the waterfall met its end. Perhaps I can give you a small parting gift, said Will. Unnecessary, Jeremy murmured. Will closed his eyes and called forth an image of the water fairy, silently pronouncing her name. He then made a request, which she granted. For now, emerging from the music of the falls, came Alicia's song, filling the valley with its haunting melody. For several minutes after the final notes had fallen, all three remained silent. Then Jeremy spoke, breaking the spell. Thank you, he said, quietly. And, without turning, he faded from Wysteria.